Hello everyone, welcome to another roster review by Glasshammer Gaming. Today we're going to talk all about Jay Wood's winning Drukhari list from the Summer War this past weekend. If you haven't already, guys, hit that subscribe button, notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release one of these videos. And if you would like more exclusive content like meta-analysis and what's winning tournaments in even more depth than this roster review, or you would like amazing discounts on our store, or you would just like to support the channel, then head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. Right, let's get straight into it then. So the first step is to look at the list that won the Summer War. So Jay Wood, it was only his one of his first few tournaments. He was telling me he was there with one of his mates and they weren't expecting to do that well. And he just stormed it, smoked everyone and won the whole thing. So it starts off with an Obsidian Rose Patrol detachment. And now Obsidian Rose, their trait is flawless craftsmanship or workmanship. Something like that. And what that does is it adds an extra 6-inch range to your rapid fire, assault, and heavy weapons. And he's got quite a lot of them in this list. So, it gives them all extra range. And each time a unit with this obsession fires, you get to re-roll one of the wound rolls. So like Cabal of the Black Heart gets to re-roll a hit roll. Obsidian Rose get to re-roll a wound roll. Could be more reliable, you never know. But I think that coupled with the extra range is better than just one hit roll. Having a wound roll and extra range just seems slightly better to me. So that's what he's gone for there. He's got an Archon in that detachment who's got the Splintered Genius ability, meaning he's paid the points for him to be a Master Archon. So once per game, he can fight twice. Now, I don't think this guy's going to be doing that much fighting because he's just got the standard weapon that the Archon comes with. Not even the Husk Blade. He's been downgraded to just a standard Venom Blade. But he does have the Helm of Spite. So he can deny one psychic power in his opponent's psychic phase. And if you successfully deny that power, then the psychic who tried to cast it takes a Perils of the Warp. It's quite nice. I reckon this is in the list because there are quite a few lists now, especially with Thousand Suns and Grey Knights on the horizon, Death Guard with that one Demon Prince that you can't target and stuff like that. You've got all these lists that can do psychic actions quite well, but just having this Archon in there is going to make them think twice about trying to cast a power, and especially around him, they might have to play differently. So it's a nice little thing to have in there just to deter your opponent, basically. So that's 1 CP, and that's got the Helm of Spite. Then his Warlord trait is Ancient Evil. Now that's the one where you can pick a unit with an engagement range of your Archon, and they will fight after everybody else has fought. So it's fight last ability. Very cool. Then you've got Drazar in the detachment. He's a beast in himself, but then he also buffs Incubi quite a lot, so he's worth having. Then you've got a unit of 10 Trueborn. Now, Trueborn are really cool. You can only have one unit of Trueborn. You're upgrading Cabalites, basically. They're just fancy Cabalites. You can upgrade one unit of Cabalites up to Trueborn for each Master Archon in your army. So for every Master Archon, you can only have one maximum unit of Trueborn. And this is a 10-man unit of Trueborn. They've got 2 blasters, a Dark Lance, and a Phantasm Grenade Launcher. Oh, it all starts here, guys. That's the first Phantasm Grenade Launcher in this list. Now, this unit always hits on 2s and never suffers any modifiers, which I think is brilliant for just 10 points a model. Then you've got 2 units of 5 Cabalite Warriors in this detachment as well, both with 1 blaster per squad and a Phantasm Grenade Launcher again. Then you've got 2 units of 5 Mandrakes, and that is the end of that detachment. After that, there's a Black Heart Patrol detachment. Now, like we were saying before, Obsidian Rose get a reroll to wound. Blackheart get a reroll to hit, +1 to their leadership characteristic, I believe, and also access to Agents of Vect. Oh, and they treat the power from pain table a turn ahead of what it actually is for the rest of your army. So in this detachment, we've got another Archon, again Splintered Genius. So he's another Master Archon, meaning he can fight twice, once per game. And this one's going to want to. He's got the Hatred Eternal Warlord trait, which gives him full rerolls to hit and wound. And then he's got the Jin Blade, which is Strength 4, -3, and flat 3 damage, and gives him an additional 2 attacks. So this guy's got 7 attacks, hitting on 2s with rerolls, and then normally wounding things on 4s, maybe 5s sometimes, with full rerolls. So he's very, very effective at what he does, and he gets to fight twice once per game. What's not to like? And then because he's a Master Archon, he's also let him take another unit of 10 Trueborn, which is in this detachment, with, again, 2 blasters, a Dark Lance, and a Phantasm Grenade Launcher. And then 2 more Cabalite squads, again, with blasters and Phantasm Grenade Launchers. There's a theme going on here. There's loads of Phantasm Grenade Launchers pump out mortal wounds, loads of blasters, and as many lances as he can possibly fit in, which I think is great, actually. He's themed it around being more Kabbalistic rather than having, you know, homunculus covens and loads and loads of witch cult. He's got a small witch cult detachment in here, but nothing major. I think it's a very themed army, and it works because everything is so skewed, like we've seen so much lately in the meta, like skewed lists doing very, very well. There's also 2 units of 5 incubi in this detachment, expected, as you know, Drazhar is in here. So because Drazhar is in the army, you'd expect there to be some incubi that he's buffing. Then there are 6 raiders. Now, interestingly, 3 of the raiders have got Dark Lances and Phantasm Grenade Launchers, and the other 3 have got Dark Lances, Phantasm Grenade Launchers, but also Grizzly Trophies and Shock Prows. Now, Grizzly Trophies are a great choice here, considering he's got so many Phantasm Grenade Launchers. Just out of what we've mentioned so far, he's got 6 units with Phantasm Grenade Launchers and 6 Raiders with Phantasm Grenade Launchers. That's 12 D3 shots with Phantasm Grenade Launchers per turn. So having some Grizzly Trophies is amazing, because units within 3 inches of a vehicle, I think it's 3 inches or 6 inches of a vehicle with Grizzly Trophies, subtracts 2 from their leadership characteristic. So when you have to try and roll over their leadership characteristic with Phantasm Grenade Launchers to do mortal wounds, that really helps. The Shock Prows, I'm not sure why they're there. I know they can do mortal wounds on the charge and stuff, but there might have been a better place to use those points, which we'll talk about later. So that is that detachment. And then finally, there is a small Cult of Strife Patrol detachment in this army with a Master Succubus. So Master Succubus, again, he's put the Master upgrades on all of them. So Master Succubus with Competitive Edge and the Triptych Whip. Absolute baller of a Succubus right there. And then a unit of 10 Witches with a Shard Net and Impaler and a Phantasm Grenade Launcher, rolling 2 random drugs. And then a unit of 5 Witches, again with another Phantasm Grenade Launcher, rolling for 2 random drugs. So that is the list. Let's take a look at how it all works. So how it's all working, guys. The main thing about how it works is it's got great shooting ability. Now, it might not look it because you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of Kabalites. People take Kabalites all the time. Yes, but people take loads of units of 5 Kabalite warriors to just jump out and play the mission. Like they retrieve data, they hold objectives, and then they die, and people don't really care. But these ones are actually tooled up. Every single unit's got a blaster, and each unit's got as many blasters and Dark Lances as it can physically take, and then also these Phantasm Grenade Launchers. Now, I reckon what he's doing with these raiders is he's catapulting one out each turn with the Grizzly Trophies on it next to a unit that he really wants dead, but doesn't want to put too much firepower into. So essentially, he can fire all of his blasters and all of his Dark Lances at whatever targets, wherever he wants to, and then he can shove a raider up next to another unit that he wants to kill, drop its leadership by 2, and just fire all of the Phantasm Grenade Launchers that way. Which is a great option that not many Drukhari lists have, you know, to just go, right, I need this unit dead, but I need that unit dead as well, and that's where I want to put all my firepower. How do I kill both? And you go, oh, I'm going to have to charge now. But actually, with this list, you go, right, I'll kill that one with all my important shooting, and then this one over here, I'll reduce his leadership and just kill it through mortal wounds or damage it to the point where I'm not really fussed about it. And then you've got all of your combat threats in here to be counterpunch, because that's one thing to note here, is that it does have decent combat ability, but not as much as a traditional Drukhari list. It's mainly just a few smash characters, which you normally have anyway in a Drukhari list. And then it's just 2 units 5 incubi and 1 unit 10 witches. That's not really the combat that you see in a traditional Drukhari list, to be fair with you. So I can see why he's added the Phantasm Grenade Launchers to kind of keep all of his combat to be counterpunch. He doesn't really have to go out with it first. And that's a great way of, you know, reserving your combat units until somebody comes to you and they can get in more reliably. So I quite like that he's done that. So that's what he's doing there, catapulting them out, shooting with Phantasm Grenade Launchers. And you know, guys, there's not actually too much to it, because a lot of these units, like if you look in the detachments, the first detachment is just all Kabalites and Trueborn that are going to be sitting in Raiders, and then some Mandrakes. And the second detachment is all Kabalites and Trueborns just sitting in Raiders again, and a few Incubi. And the third one is all witches that are going to sit in Raiders, shooting their Phantasm Grenade Launchers until something gets close enough to counterpunch. So the whole list is built around just sitting in these Raiders, flying around onto objectives until you physically have to get out and engage your opponent. Until then, you just keep shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and blowing them off the board. So I think the list is very, very good at doing that essentially. And then, you have like 5 Kabalites, 5 Incubi, 5 Kabalites, 5 Incubi. So you've got some protection for some of your Kabalites when the combat threats can jump out and counterpunch. The 2 units of 5 Mandrakes are very important here actually, because they do actions for you without you having to get any important units out of raiders. Now that's very good because Mandrakes, they can forward deploy. So they don't have to deploy in your deployment zone. They can deploy out to the flanks and stuff in different quarters. And they can do retrieve Octarius data for you really well. That's the next thing I wanted to talk about this army, is the secondaries it can do. So the Mandrakes are perfect for things like retrieve data. Now you will pretty much guarantee you get 2 retrieve datas with them, and you can fade off the board and come back on next turn a different quarter. And because you've got 2 units of them, each one can do that once. So you're probably guaranteed to get 12 points just with your 2 Mandrake units. Now, if you're not, of course, you've got little 5-man Kabalites and 5-man Witch units that can jump out late game and do any quarters that you couldn't physically do with your Mandrakes. So retrieve data is a secondary that this list does insanely well. Then you've got Herd the Prey or Stranglehold are also very good, because the amount of shooting here and then the counterpunch, they can pretty much keep you out of their own half of the board for the entire game. And that basically just solidifies the fact that they're going to get 15 on Herd the Prey, but also Stranglehold. In some missions where you've got like priority target, sweep and clear, the ones where you're going to try and do the mission specific one anyway, well, if you're going to do that and fight for the middle objective, why not do Stranglehold? So Herd the Prey and Stranglehold are just interchangeable. Retrieve data is a must, basically, in my opinion. And then also, To the Last is done very cleverly here. So it's the 2 units of 10 Trueborn who are just going to be sitting in their raider at the back of the board, shooting blasters and dark lances all game. And then it's Drazar. Now, you can keep Drazar safe if you want to. If there's no real threats to him, you can send him in with the Incubi and just start tearing stuff up. But if there are threats to him, then you can play him cagey and kind of take him off the board in a raider if you need to and just bring him back on turn 5, which I think is insane, by the way, guys. You can spend the CP, and most stratagems where you spend a CP to pick a unit up and put them into reserve, they have to come back on next turn. It says like in your next movement phase, they come back on. Well, not this one. You can just go into strategic reserves and that's it. So turn 1, you can put Drazar in a raider and put that raider off the edge of the board into strategic reserve with your stratagem, and they just go into strategic reserves. So, and because they didn't start off the board, they don't have to come on by turn 3. So essentially, Drazar can run away turn 1 in a raider and come back on turn 5 and just score you points onto the last that your opponent basically never gets a chance to kill, which I think is just incredible. So To the Last is amazing for it. The other thing is the characters in here. All the characters are beasts. Drazar hits like a ton of bricks. The Archon with Hatred Eternal and the Djinn Blade hits like a ton of bricks. And then the Succubus with a competitive edge and the Triptych Whip just is so efficient at killing what she needs to kill. So you've got these cheap characters that will always trade up essentially. So it makes it very hard to play against this list. And then of course you've got that one Archon who runs in there and makes something fight last as well. So you've got to be really, really careful about how you play against this. We've talked about the lances and the blasters and the phantasm grenade launchers and how efficient they are at killing things at range. And then, the characters kind of buff it by being counterpunch along with the Incubi and Witch units. So now we know how it works and what secondaries it takes. Let's have a look at how we can tackle the list. Right, tackling this list then, guys. So the first 2 things I'm going to say aren't ways that we can tackle it, but are just innate ways of being a bit more resilient to this list, essentially. So it's less about tackling the list and more about what makes this struggle a little bit for the first 2. So the first one is hordes. I think hordes make this struggle a little bit because a lot of the firepower here is phantasm grenade launchers, which do 1 or 2 mortal wounds, blasters who are going to kill a single infantry model, and dark lances who are going to kill a single infantry model. So the entire list here has just got a lot of like anti-elite firepower. The shooting's not going to do too much into a horde. And then by ways of combat against a horde, all you've got really is the 2 units of Incubi, which maybe have enough attacks to deal with horde units when Drazar is next to them, giving them the +1 to wound, and the Archon's giving them real 1 to hit on wound, and 1 unit of 10 witches. 2 units of 5 Incubi with buffs on them, and 1 unit of 10 witches. That's what you've got into hordes. Now, I know there aren't very many hordes in the game right now, but what I'm saying is that is just something that the list will innately struggle against. The next thing that it will innately struggle against is high leadership. If you've got loads and loads of high leadership, like if your army is majority leadership 9, like Custodes, for example, then your leadership goes down to 7, even with Grizzly trophies. And then all of a sudden they have to roll an above average roll to do mortal wounds to you. Because most things in the game are leadership 7 or 8. So those all go down to leadership 5 and 6, and average rolls of 7 plus will just do mortal wounds to you, which is why the list is so good. But like things like Custodes go, okay, leadership 8 now. 7 now. You still got to roll 8s, which isn't like an easy thing. So you're going to get less than half the mortal wounds you normally should get, which I think is amazing. And then, of course, you've got things like Necrons in the meta. Now, Necrons, I think Necrons could give this list a real run for their money because they have all the horde element through the warriors, which this list isn't that good at dealing with. But on top of that, they're all leadership 10. So you go, right, you're not that good at dealing with hordes in the first place. And by the way, even with your Grizzly trophies on leadership 8, so you have to roll 9s on your 2d6 to do mortal wounds with those Phantasm Grenade launchers. So they're not going to do very much at all against things like Necron warriors. That is like a great, just innate counter to this list. The next few things, though, are things that we can add to make our games against this better. The first thing is high volume of strength 6/7 firepower. Now, I say that because there are 6 raiders in this army. But as soon as those raiders start crumbling, the list becomes way less efficient. The first thing I would say about how to deal with it is by going for the 3 raiders that have got the Grizzly trophies upgrades. Don't go for the 3 that don't have them. Go for the 3 that do have them, because after that, they can't debuff your leadership anymore, and they're going to have to roll higher with their Phantasm Grenade launchers to do mortal wounds and like damage through that way to you. So go for the 3 raiders with Grizzly trophies on them first. And they're only toughness 6. And the main thing is they only have a 4-up save. So they're toughness 6 with a 4-up save and 10 wounds. Most of the time, when you're shooting at them with strength 6 and strength 7 firepower, it's going to be at least -1 AP. So you're going to be putting them on their 5-up invulnerables with anything you have that's strength 6 or 7. And normally strength 6 and 7 shot weapons normally have damage 2 or D3 or, things like that. Of course, they're not normally like D6 damage weapons, strength 6 and strength 7 things, but they're normally multi-damage. There aren't very many things in the game that are strength 6 and then are 1 damage. They're normally D3 or flat 2 damage, and in some cases, flat 3 damage. Now, if you look at auto cannons, for example, they're strength 7, they're -1, and they're flat 2. That is like the optimal profile to deal with raiders because 1, your strength 7, so you wound them on 3s. 2, your AP -1, so you put them on their 5 invulnerable, and 3, you're multi-damage. So strength 7, -1, flat 2 damage, you'll get through these raiders like bloody knife through butter. And the other thing is, like twin Volkite Culverins. Loads of people are taking Volkite Culverins right now, and they are just mental against this. Even if you go with normal Culverins. So let's not look at Iron Hands ones or Death Guard ones, because they are the best ones in the game. Let's look at just normal Culverins. A Culverin Dread would get 16 shots. It would get 10 hits, and it would get to reroll 3 ones because there'd be a captain nearby. So you're going to go, 10, that's 12 hits, basically. And you go, okay, 12 hits. I'm wounding on 4s. There's 6 wounds. Rerolling 2 ones with a lieutenant. That's 7. So I've done 7 wounds on a raider. And, they're still 4-ups, but you've done 2 mortal wounds averagely there as well. So it goes down to 8 straight away, and then it's got 7 saves to take. Now, it's either going to fail 3 or 4 averagely. So you either leave a raider on like 2 wounds or completely wipe a raider out with a single dread. So that's what I'm saying. A high volume of strength 6 and 7 firepower opens these raiders very quickly. And if you can get rid of those 3 Grizzly Trophy ones, they're less efficient. And then coupling with that, the final thing that I want to talk about tackling it is out of line of sight shooting. Now, you look at it and you go, but it's just a load of raiders. Like everything is in transports. Yes, but if you don't open these transports throughout the majority of the game, you have probably lost the game already. Half of the game is opening these raiders, especially the ones with the Grizzly trophies on them. So if you're planning on opening the raiders, take some out of line of sight shooting, because most of the time, Drukhari players position their raiders near ruins. So the raiders are outside, they shoot, and all the stuff inside shoots at you. And then when you kill a raider, the unit inside hops out behind a piece of obscuring terrain that you can no longer target them behind. So out of line of sight shooting kind of mitigates that. And I felt that firsthand myself, to be fair. I played at the Gibraltar Grand Tournament against Boris, who's a very, very good Drukhari player. And I was using my Admech. And having those two gunboats, the two Scorpius disintegrators sitting in the back of the board, really helped me because my Rangers were opening all the raiders, but then the witches were getting out behind terrain, so the other ranger squads couldn't shoot them. But they're toughness 3 with a 6 of invulnerable, so the Scorpius disintegrators just shooting 3d3 shots each out of line of sight just picked them up really well. So I think that's a great way of dealing with this list, is bringing a load of strength 6 and strength 7 firepower to open the raiders, and then some out of line of sight shooting to take out what gets out of them. So that is how we would tackle this list. Let's go on to the final section here and tell you how we could change the list if you're an interested Drukhari player that wants to use this. So guys, let's have a look at modifications. There are not very many modifications here at all because A, it is a tournament winning list, and B, the theme of this list will be broken if we change it too much, because obviously it's meant to sit in raiders and play the way that it does, shooting the crap out of you. So I think the only thing that could be done here is skew more into that. For example, like Drazar. I think Drazar is slightly out of place here. He's been taken. He's not the warlord, so he doesn't have his full rules to hit and wound. So he's less efficient. And also he's just buffing 2 units of 5 incubi. I don't think you really need Drazar if you're going to do this. So personally, and you've already got a HQ in that detachment, so you don't need him. I would drop Drazar if it was me, and then the unit of 5 witches that he's got in his patrol, I would up that to a 10-man and add an additional 10-man. So you're basically losing Drazar, but instead of having 1 unit of 10 witches and then like a crappy little unit, you'll actually have 3 10-man witch units, all with shard nets and impalers and phantasm grenade launchers. Because like I said, the only thing that this lacks is anti-horde and combat. So if you've got 2 units of 5 incubi to fight with, and then 30 witches, like 3 big squads of 10 witches, I think that'll just do the job and it'll plug in any weaknesses that this list has. So that is the only change personally I would recommend in making to the list. And those witches have a lot more tricks than just having Drazar in the army. So definitely do that. Right, guys, I really hope that you've enjoyed this segment. It was a very, very different Drukhari list to the ones that we've encountered at the top of the meta so far. So, I'm hoping to see how this does in future events, and I'll be following Jay's progress, finding out how he gets on. And like I always say, guys, if you have any pointers for these videos and this kind of list, then please leave them in the comments below for everybody to share and grow together. If you've watched this video to the very end and you haven't hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell, you need to do that right now. And like I said at the start, if you're enjoying this content and you would like more different content and meta analysis, great discounts off our web store, and also if you would just like to support the channel because you love our content so much, then please head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. And until next week, guys, stay safe, play lots of 40k, watch all my other videos, and I'll catch you later, guys.